Growers Show.
Well, I guess I'll start off by introducing myself for anybody who doesn't know who I am. My name's Brandon Rust. I'm the owner of Bokashi Earthworks and also Earthworks Agriculture, which is an agricultural consulting company. I also have a hemp license and a tissue culture lab. And I work with NASA Agricultural Technologies. They're one of my business partners, and they manufacture carbon-based making fulvic acid fertilizer, which has higher use efficiency than conventional fertilizer without any negative detrimental impact. It also acts as a biostimulant as well. So you mentioned the North Dakota. I've got, so I am kind of like a serial entrepreneur. And I've been cultivating cannabis since 2000, 2002. And I was, trained by some guys that had already been in it for a really long time, over a little over a decade, maybe 11, 12 years. And they kind of brought me under their wing, and I worked with those guys for about 2 years before I got my own partners. And so I trapped in California for about 18 years before I got into the legal base in Oklahoma. I became the cultivation director at a farm out of Oklahoma. Had our own 40-acre farm at one point. And during that time, Bokashi Earthworks, my nutrient company, who I manufacture, multifunctional probiotic, soil probiotic. We sell organic amendments and the humates now. Kind of started becoming full time, and so I more transitioned and more just focused on the Bokashi Earthworks business. But I have always cultivated. I've never stopped. So I still maintain, a home grow, and I have a couple of soil beds, and I do a lot of projects.
I love projects.
Yeah. So, I've been breeding since 2005. And so it's always been something I've really enjoyed the process of doing, like the full process. And I'm gonna do like my own personal thing, what I like, which is two basic things, which is the Limarilla, which falls into the category of like a sour chem. It's Gorilla Glue 4 and Black Lime Reserve. I've been working that line since 2014 or
Nice.
And then also the blueberry train mac, which is a blueberry train rack derivative that I've been working for some years now. And those are kind of the two main lines that I work with. I do breeding with the Black Lime Reserve male. We kept pollen from and a bunch of stuff. And so I have those projects ongoing all the time, where I'm doing pheno hunting. Sometimes I'll do seed drops occasionally, like when I have, enough seeds that I know I'm not going to be able to pop them all. And so that's kind of a business that I have that's integrated into like clones and tissue culture. And yeah, I mean, I do a bunch of stuff. I just our dispensary and grow. It's a vertically integrated micro business. Instead of going huge, me and my business partners went real small. And so we got like probably 3,000 square foot facility, and our largest grow flower room is 6 lights. So there's two lighters. Yeah, what's that?
Oh no, I was just I like that you keep it small like that, like keep the craft in it. You know what I mean? A lot of these big time guys are just all concerned about the money, and that's the product that just goes out isn't where it should be.
I took a different approach to it because I've been in cannabis, since I was a teenager. I started selling weed back in like 1999.
Nice.
And so, I've been on the traditional market. I've worked in the legal market. I understand what it takes to operate a vertically integrated farm to table business.
Yeah.
And what I see oftentimes is that people don't really look at the logistics and break everything down. And not only, from, input costs, water costs, electric costs,
Yeah, yeah,
lease costs, insurance costs, payroll, everything. The way that we approached it was we were going to do something small where we probably produce about 150 pounds out of the place every year, but it's all being sold in-house.
yeah, yeah.
So we're producing, nothing's moving from the spot. It goes from our dry room to the shelves.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good though too, because then you can get full retail on it too. I mean, it's nice.
We cut out the
Yeah.
middleman and
Yep.
all that other stuff.
Yep.
And we put together, a really cool business model too, because we have a hemp license and we have our medical cultivation and dispensary license. And one of those rooms that we have, one of the 4 light rooms, is dedicated to what we're calling Battle of the Breeders. And so we're going to make a YouTube channel, make this a series, but we're basically putting 4 different breeders in this room, and we'll have 16 breeders over the course of the year.
Yeah.
And it'll all be, female selections. It'll be 9 plants under each light. So one breeder, one variety, 9 phenotypes. So 30.
Daniel Farmington here. Would you like to add a little extra happy to your daily routine? Try One-A-Days by the Rehab Premium Company. One-A-Days to keep the doctor away.
6 plants. It's going to be rad, right? And at the end of
Yeah.
that, we're going to package up. Oh, here's the Cap Junkie box. Here's the Capulator box. Here's the Fresh Coast box.
That's
Here's
cool.
the Pinehurst box. So people can come in and they can judge that flower. So it's going to be like the people that come into the store and buy that flight of phenos that we're offering, they can judge every one of those 9 phenos for each variety, and they can give a scorecard, and those scores. So lets the community get involved in the process of what they're watching being cultivated.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then if you're not in Oklahoma and you can't get that flower, we'll be able to offer the winning genetics to, consumers, cultivators through our hemp license. So we have a really cool vertically integrated business model that integrates marketing, cross branding, promotion, and, documenting the process,
Yeah.
saying, hey, this is this variety, and then we're going to give you guys a little education on running LEDs, blah, 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 so we'll integrate a little bit of history, a little bit of education, a little bit of cultivation practices, that type of stuff into the series. But it's all, and to do that, I actually formed a new company, so I formed a local video photographer, my marketing director, myself, and then another guy that worked for my company, who has strong ties to like production companies and in the film industry. So
I think that's cool though, because then it kind of gives the community a chance to kind of get in there and let you know what the community wants and likes too. Yeah, I mean, it's by them. You said they vote on all this stuff, correct?
yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah. So yeah, that's cool.
it's a really good point too, because what we're going to be doing is we'll perpetually be doing a drop. So every, 2 months, bam, oh, we got these 4 new flavors that are dropping. You can come get these. But it also gives us market data. You know what I mean? Because the people that are getting involved, that are buying, they can say, oh, hey, everybody liked this particular cultivar best. People came back for it. When we're doing sales to our customers and our consumers, we want to be able to collect that market data, because we're going to have 6 in-house varieties that really don't change. The things that have a good sell through that people really like, we want to keep those the same for our company. Be like, hey, we've got Chem D. This is original Chem D. Like, I talk to the guys, I can use the labeling, like everything. So it's like doing stuff like that to try to set us apart from what is conventionally. And I feel like we have the ability to do that because I'm so integrated into the community. I know so many people as far as operators and business owners and breeders, and so it works, I think, really well for
It adds a
all
lot of
of us.
credence to what you're doing as well, that you're talking to people and able to use that original labeling, able to use those original, like for ChemD, having that things people are used to, and they know that you're not just white labeling something or calling it something else, just because that's what you want it to be. That's awesome. it's hard to find somebody or some place that's honest like that all the time that you can actually trace back and hear them say what you just said on somewhere. You know, like the proof is in the pudding. That's not the right term to use, but you know, you're putting your money where your mouth is, I guess what you would say. You know, you're telling it like it is and saying like, go ahead, check me. I am using this. This is the original, you know.
You know, I agree, and it's great too because, like you said, you guys are in the community too, so you don't want to put that assumption out that you guys are doing this or doing that or going, you know, just skipping steps and this and that. And you guys are letting the community know that, you know, this is what you guys got. This is how you guys are doing it. It's good. It's quality. I mean, that's good. You're not just trying to get in there and out. I mean, it's building the brand over time. I mean, you guys are going to be there for however many years. You know what I mean? You guys are going to want your customers to know that they come in and they can get that quality without even having to worry about it. I mean,
Yeah, it helps to build other brands too because when we're featuring things on the packaging that says, "Hey, this is Fresh Coast," you know,
yeah,
that's giving an opportunity, you know, to say, "Hey, like, yeah, dude, that's our genetics that we grew, that you know we bred, and these guys, you know, do a really good job.
yeah,
You can go find this at that spot, you know." So it's like, you know, it's just a really good way to kind of get the community involvement because
yeah.
that's really where everything comes from, you know, like I think the biggest problem with, you know, the reason why people like, you know, home growers and people that are like in the cannabis scene, they don't go to dispensaries. They just grow their own or they, you know, they do their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if they had an option to come to a spot that was like, oh shit, they're doing the new capulator or they're about to do a capulator drop, like they're the type of people that understand what that is and also
Yeah.
want to be part of it. Like, oh, dude, I'm gonna go grab some of that because I know it's gonna be fire.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Are you self-taught, or did you have somebody who showed you the ropes from start to finish? Like, and was this something you were passionate about before you got into it? You know, the amendments, the nutrients.
Yeah, I gotta plug my laptop in. I just got a little signal that says it's time to plug it in. So
No, if you go back, Steve, when he introduced himself, though, he was saying that he worked with somebody for a couple of years before he kind of branched off on himself. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so what happened was, see, my dad was serving a life sentence in prison, and when I was 18, I was able to get a hold of him, and he hooked me up with some people, some of his friends, which were, you know, probably a decade younger than he was,
Okay.
but a decade older than me. And when I started, these guys basically like they knew I knew what they were doing, even though they weren't open about it. And so I started working for them, but I wasn't working like I wasn't in their gardens working. I wasn't doing that stuff. Like I never even got to see a garden for months because I put in tons of work doing things like weed whacking their yards or washing their
Paying your
dogs
way.
or you know what I mean? So I had to put in work to say,
Like
hey, I really
like
want to.
intern status.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
There you
was
go.
basically I was a gopher. I was basically kind of like prospecting for these guys. They
Yeah,
just wanted to see where my head was at, you know, if I really wanted it. And they made me do a lot of bullshit. You know what I mean? They made me do a lot of hard work, but I knew that it would pay off. And you know, eventually they you know blindfolded me, put me in the back of the truck, took me to one of the gardens, and I got to see my first like, you know, what would be considered, you know, commercial then, which was really just, you know, you know, there was 3 4 lighters in a house, you know, so it was a 4 bedroom house. It had a bedroom, and then each room had checkerboard, HPS metal halide, and we were all running the 2 gallon ebb and flow brain buckets with hydrocorn rock. So, you know, that's what I learned on, and I did that same system for, you know, 11 years before I ever switched over and I mentioned this not too long ago. The reason why I switched over to soil was because I think I had a pump fail and my whole room died because the plants didn't get watered, you
sure.
know, that's over the
Yeah,
weekend or whatever. And I was like, fuck this. Soil's more forgiving. Even if I don't water, they're not going to fuck completely die. So from probably 2012 to 2014 or 2015, I was doing soil, but I was still using fertigation salts. And I think I was using house and garden at that time. And then, you know, my homeboy who taught me, he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna switch everything to organic and yada yada." He put on this big spiel, And then I was all, yeah, I'm gonna fucking do it too. And then I went and switched out all my garden. Did like I think I did like Subcool Super. It was like okay, but I just didn't hit yields like I normally did. And then it turns out that my homeboy was just bullshitting with me. He was not switching anything. So I switched it out and it was there. So I had to kind of figure out at this time, the science behind, what I needed to really be doing instead of just operating protocols or nutrient, regimen.
Right.
Because that's all I was doing was basically like following a recipe and just making sure my temps and my humidity was okay. But it was just a recipe. It was that simply what it was. It wasn't me really understanding.
Be honest, that's kind of where I'm at in my life right now as far as that. Like I just follow recipes and just follow instructions and whatnot. Yeah, taking information as I go.
Yeah,
See
and for
what
me
works
now
for
it's
you.
a lot different because I've got 11 years of really deep dives into the science, reading pretty complicated textbooks and
Yep.
science white papers and stuff like that. So, but it was really just taking that leap and then diving headfirst into the information. So yeah, I'm self-taught when it comes to all of the soil science, learning how to read soil tests and doing agronomy. All that stuff is stuff that I taught myself, and anybody could do it. I come from nothing. I grew up in foster care and in and out of jail and prison almost my whole adult life. So
Hey, once you find something that resonates with you, it could change you. Not that you had anything wrong with you, but you know what I mean. It's something
no,
that
it
you
was really
dedicated
just the
yourself.
laws.
Yeah. Well,
Terrible,
absolutely.
shitty
Yeah.
laws.
The laws were getting in the way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
technically,
mean,
you found your calling way before they'd allow you to have your calling.
if we're defining crime as there has to be a victim of some wrongdoing, the only crime that I could really have been committed of is theft of electricity. And some would argue, well, it's a giant corporation. Are you really hurting them? But that is the only crime where it was like, oh, because I did steal something.
Yeah.
But that was it. Everything else is all like it's all drug charges, sales charges, cultivation, sales, fucking manufacturing for making hash, like shit like that. And it's like, no, if I could have gone back with the information that I know now about the court system, because I've gone through it so many times, there's a lot people don't know. And I would use some of that information, and I wouldn't have gotten in trouble before.
Well, the only difference between a lot of people is that some people got caught, and that's really the only difference between a lot of people in this community is some people were just lucky enough to not get caught. It's not like you did anything wrong. There was people probably growing bigger setups than you that just got lucky, and that's really what it's about. What?
I got caught a couple times,
Yeah.
but I learned
I've heard some of your
22 years
stories.
ago. Yeah, 22 years ago. So I learned.
I feel like that's what they were looking for a long time ago too, though. Like you'd always hear those stories growing up. I mean, I'm 39 tomorrow. Like hearing
nice.
people.
Happy birthday!
Oh shit, yeah. But like you'd always hear about like helicopters flying over houses just looking for heat signatures, and I don't even know if that was true. But you would always hear about it.
Yeah, well, there was a program. It was called Operation Green Merchant, I believe, and it was a joint. It was a joint venture between, I think, the FBI and the sheriff department. And what they would do is they would stake out, garden centers, hydroponic grows, and they would, try to track down, or they would see what people were buying if they were using credit cards.
Okay.
And they were tracking people down to bust them for cultivation.
I've never myself gotten in any trouble like that, but I was at a buddy of mine's house when the SWAT team came in.
Over some
Probably
plants.
20 years ago, man. It was just his dad had like 50 or 60 of them in the basement. but they come in like a bat out of hell, man. Door down, oh yeah, on the ground. Oh, it was fucking crazy.
I used to be scared to go to the grow shop. You
Well,
Yeah.
pick
for
certain
sure.
times to go there, and oh yeah, you had to be careful just to get soil.
It was crazy because when I was in San Diego, we had these apartment complexes that were all lined up like side by side by side, and our complexes on this side and this side were filled with nothing but growers and trappers. And so we had this whole like apartment complex on lock, and it was crazy because right across the street was like a business plaza, and they opened up a hydroponic store right there, dude. We were like, holy shit, because we were driving like 40 minutes to go to like this was back in the day before really hydro stops were like abundant. We were going to a local garden center to go get the things that we needed.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. It's like the only place we got around here is Country Max, so it's like even back then, like I can imagine there's one store, for per community, and sometimes one store per like county. So it's not
California
hard to
hydroponics. Thank you.
Sunset
Yep,
Hydroponics
and
in
then they had
Rochester. That's the only place the
Green
closest
Tree.
place to me
Yeah.
for years. They could definitely.
There's some people that made real good money, but I'll tell you what, dude, there's no money in garden shops right now. Most of the ones out here in Oklahoma, like you get like a three-year lifespan when legalization happens because everybody's coming in for the first couple years. Then you got to get out quick because
Everybody's shopping online too. That makes it even
That's the
worse.
hard part.
yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
one of the hard parts.
most of the shops here in Oklahoma City have closed down. Like, GrowGen closed down, HDG closed down, a couple other ones closed down too.
Yeah, it's hard.
yeah, I got probably about 4 or 5 within 15-minute drive from me, I'd say. Yeah, they're all over here.
Yep.
So, how'd you come up with the NutriGrow pot?
So, I was actually introduced to Dr. George, and Dr. He's an ex-NASA engineer, so he was the director of structural dynamics on the Apollo space program. And he's pretty up there in age. He's 90 plus years. And somebody had given me a sample of his product that he developed and created. And it's in my garage for like 6 months, and then at just some point the guy's like, dude, you need to try that out. And I had an R&D box, like a shipping container that I was doing projects in at the time. So I was like, fuck it, and I used it. And the next day I came back, and then my plant, like my soil was already healthy, plants were already healthy, but I came back and they had this like sheen on them that looked like they were almost made out of plastic, and I was like, what the fuck? Dude, what's going on? What is this? I was all, there's no way this is organic. I've never seen anything like this. And I started asking him questions that he couldn't answer, like technical. It's like, I'm going to put in touch with George. And I was like, cool. And, maybe like a couple hours later, Dr. George called me up, and I talked to him on the phone for about 45 minutes. And he seemed like he was really impressed with my depth of knowledge when it comes to soil science and biology. So he invited me out to, NASA Agricultural Technologies, the company that he owns out in Chicago. And, I've been learning from him. I go out there a couple of months, every 2 or 3 months, and I spend a couple of days there, and he teaches me new stuff. And, I started, so he's, kind of all over the place. The guy speaks, 5 or 6 different languages. He's got, an aerospace engineering degree, mechanical and civil engineering degree, a chemical engineering degree. The guy is a genius. He makes people like Elon Musk look really, really dumb. He makes people he makes the people that we think that are really bright, what's the guy that always talks about astrophysics and stuff.
Neil
Tyson.
He makes like that look just dumb. and it's insane. And so I've, spending a lot of time with him, I have a lot of stuff from him. He has high expectations, and he's constantly quizzing me on stuff. But we developed a relationship because, he's had this technology. He developed it in the 80s, and he took it, international. First factory in Brazil, sold to the South American government, Brazilian government. He had set up factories in, Greece, in China, in Mexico, in the U.S., and he had a plant that they were building. They actually had a plant they were building in craft, and it didn't get finished. And so I involved them. Well, this American technology. It needs to be, in America. And so I started doing the distribution, and I'm just pulling from the plant down in Mexico that he has. So, in fact, during this process of me doing all the label registration and, sales and marketing stuff like that, relationship develops, and we start thinking long term, because George is going to be here forever, and wife will want to retire, and so they need somebody to, take over this technology and this company. And so, we developed a business plan, and I went through decade finance and architectural designs, and product costs and material costs and labor, and I put together, like a 45-page business proposal, and we put all the steps. We're currently, there's people that are reviewing our business proposal, so we go to North Dakota to do large scale manufacturing of the NutriGrow pot and humate fertilizer there. So we formed a company, a new corporation called Carbotech Technologies, which is a joint venture of Bokashi Earthworks and NASA Agricultural Technologies. That formed in North Dakota. We've also applied for what's called primary sector in North Dakota, because their two main sectors are energy and agriculture, and we tie into both of those because they're energy from lignite coal, and we can take all of their waste from that lignite coal, the stuff they don't eat, and that into fertilizer. So we're sequestering carbon, and we're actually utilizing their a product for energy and producing a fertilizer at a lower cost from a raw material that's abundant. So it ties into that, and with that primary sector, we can get some grant money from North Dakota, and we also get 5 years tax free as a business. We don't pay sales tax and payroll tax and those types of
Nice.
things. And I was able to write carbon tax credits into the business proposal as well, because I read about 120 pages of IRS tax code about carbon credits, and there's a bunch of stuff in there about the ways to get those. And so I had Chat GPT basically study everything, and then I was able to format how everything needs to be put together, so I know what I do, and we're taking those steps to go out the tax all.
It's crazy. Chat GPT is nuts. It can't.
Yeah, well,
it
somebody
can
put me on
analyze
to
anything you want. It's
with
crazy.
it. Yeah, I use it a lot. It's good for compartmentalizing information, and it works great. Makes things really efficient. I sometimes use GPT as opposed to using Google and stuff when I'm trying to find something specific.
Yeah, it does. It goes super specific. Like, you could be like literal, like super run-on sentence, 13 ands separating the damn thing, and it'll find what. I love it.
To answer your initial question, though, it was Dr. George that thought of the idea of the NutriGrow pot.
Okay.
But I came in and did all of the development. So he was like, we should do this. And I had to figure out what was the best way to approach it. So it took me over a year. I want to say it probably took like 14, 15 months. I did formulation, mixed together, incorporate fertilizer, and ended up coming to the point where we realized that it would be best absorbed into a compost base that we can form in a a pulp mold machine. So what we do is we'll take a compost base, we'll use a pulp mold machine, we'll mold it, but that compost is going to be pre-inoculated, you know, humate. So it forms that cup, it dries that cup, we package it up, it's ready to go. So here's the thing, we're just trying to get financing for the factory, but once we have large scale production of that, what I expect to see is probably $100+ million revenue annually from the fertilizer and those NutriGrow pot sales, because we have the ability to grow in like sand with those. So we could green up deserts with a product like this. So it's going to be good in places like Dubai and Kuwait and Nigeria and anywhere that has real poor soil quality, which is a lot of places everywhere.
How close would you have to plant them to, like, you're essentially like terraforming, kind of? How like many would you need to have it be sustainable, like after like that initial plant that was there dead? Like how many would you need to have in proximity?
So essentially, for every kilogram, every kilo, which is 2.25 ounces, you're adding about 46 kilos of carbon to the soil through both through the amount of carbon that's in the product, but also through photosynthesis. So what's happening is the plant is taking in carbon dioxide to make a bunch of different organic compounds, and then they exude those through the roots into the soil for long-term storage, and also has a turnover to stimulate that microbiome. The microbes are some of these organic compounds. Some of them are creating long-term humus. But here, to give you an idea, if you took a one inch as a seed for corn, and that pot weighed 20 grams, and you did 50,000 of those in a hectare of land, you would be bringing in 1,000 kilos of, or not 1,000 kilos, sorry. I just messed up my math. It's
a lot.
No, it's 1,000 kilos. It's 1,000 kilos of fertilizer on a hectare of land, which is a massive amount. You wouldn't even need that much.
Right.
So the whole point of it is to use it as a seed starter and a complete fertilizer, so that way you can do one and done. You plant it, and all you have to do is add water. The fertilizer itself doesn't leach like conventional fertilizers, and that's because it becomes a constitute of the soil organic matter. So the nutrients that are chelated with the humic and fulvic acid, that humic and fulvic acid, they're these really small molecules, and they'll bond on to the surfaces of negatively charged like clay or soil or silt or sand particles, and they'll just adhere to those. And then when the plant is, mining and the roots are spreading out, it has access to all of that. Or when it gets watered, the humic and fulvic acid chelated complexes, or organic complexes, nutrient complexes, they fall into solution, and they're being absorbed via mass flow. And then you have to remember, like, when we're talking about like the soil I have here is like sand. So I had a soil test, had like 58 total ppm of total soluble nutrients. It's literally sand for whatever reason. I don't know why. It's just really bad soil out here. And I was able to successfully grow out gourds and pumpkins and loofah using NutriGrow pots. The thing is, what it's doing is also adding organic matter into that soil. So it's not just like fertilizing, right? It stimulates that microbiome, and anytime you're stimulating the microbiome, the microorganisms are what are creating like these enzymes that are solubilizing sand and the silt and the clay and the parent appetite material that's in that soil to actually create new soil. It turns over nutrients. It creates things like polysaccharides, mono and polysaccharides, which are basically like bacterial glues that aggregate soil particles together. So it help, form nice soil structure. And when that happens, you get better air and gas exchange and better water retention. So it's like a cascade of things that are happening when you're introducing carbon-based fertilization, right? It's not just one thing. Like the thing with a salt-based nutrient, let's take DAP, diammonium phosphate. It's two nutrients to start. It's nit ammonium, ammonium, nitrogen, and phosphate. And what happens is when you put those into the soil, right, and they get wet, those ions dissociate and they're highly charged. And so they'll bond with other stuff in the soil. And what they'll often do is they'll tie stuff up in the soil. And then because that, like phosphate, for instance, and that ammonia is converted quickly into nitrate, which are natively charged, they can't adhere to natively charged soil colloids. They repel each other. So there's no place for them to go when there's excess water and they end up in our waterways, right? None of this stuff happens when you're using the carbon-based nutrition. I mean, it can. You can overdo it. Organic doesn't necessarily mean safe. You know what I mean? You could have, anthrax is organic, but it's not safe. And so you have to be, obviously you don't want to over apply things like fertilizers and manures or, even, carbon-based fertilizers. But there's a far less chance of negative impacts because of the way they interact with the soil environment and become a constitute of the soil profile itself.
Well, in layman's terms, because I get confused really easily, but like basically what you're saying is use them for seed starters, and once they get put in the soil, it kind of explodes and just attaches to everything and just creates a great them underneath the soil. Correct?
Yeah. So
Okay.
you're bringing in a source of carbon, right?
Yep.
And it'll actually absorb 40 times more than what it weighs. So if it weighs a pound.
You're taking 40 pounds of water. Or is it 40? She's at 40 times?
40 times, 40x. So whatever it is, it'll,
Yeah.
it has holding capacity. It increases the ability of soil to hold way more water.
Okay. That's awesome.
There's in that, that's the whole idea, is just to create different formulations and different sizes, different crops. You can put, do your seed starter, plant it, and this is the benefit of it, right? So you get complete nutrition, you get carbon, better water retention, the micro stimulating effect, but also a farmer doesn't have to go back and continually fertilize his crops, right? So he's going to save on maintenance and repairs. He's going to save on fuel costs. He's going to save on labor costs. He's going to save on, water costs using these. So there's all these additional things that are logistically happening when you apply these types of products that make sense, not just in the long run, but in the short term as well, from a logistical business perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not
That's
just
cool.
saving money on nutrients. That's
Yeah.
you're saving money on the whole process, even in the future.
You want to hear something really cool? So with these carbon tax credits, just with the initial data that we have, we estimated that every single kilo of humate fertilizer essentially sequesters 36.16 kilos of carbon dioxide. Now, we're going to do updated data collection and fill out what's called a life cycle activity report on this product, and then we submit that data and the activity report to the Department of Energy and IRS. Once we get approval, we can write that into an IRS tax form when we do our taxes to get those credits. But the thing is, since we know how to do that, we can help incentivize farmers to use these products because they can also apply for those same carbon tax by filling out life cycle activity report. So when they're looking at their soil and they're looking at the increase in soil organic matter, there's, equation on how much that is when you do the CO2 conversion. So a farmer could essentially be getting maybe like $187 per acre back on their tax return. And if they're doing 1,000 acres, that's a massive incentive for a farmer. So I've been able to, like, when it comes to the business side of things, I've been able to implement a lot of things that are not conventional, people don't really look at, because I'm trying to think outside of the box on ways that we can help additionally. And I'm not big on like government subsidies, like how they subsidize corn and stuff like that. Because the taxpayer essentially is paying for that. But in this case, what's happening is the farmer is actually getting it, and it's not some big ag company. It's going directly back to the farmer. And anytime the farmer is able to be more profitable, it's, they're the cornerstone of
Yeah.
of our
Yep,
country.
100%.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
cool.
they essentially, they get to save money on their own taxes, or they get to make money by selling those tax credits. So the farmer is the one who wins instead of some large industrial ag company, so they get to participate in these government programs that already exist, that they wouldn't even normally know about, that we can say, hey, look, you could do this. You might as well take advantage of it if it exists, because they're essentially going to either give you free money, or you're going to be able to mitigate your tax risk.
So I guess in all reality, it's really good for everybody. I mean, from the farmer to the big corporations too. So it's, just in the past 15 minutes, I've heard you pitch a couple of different things. You can pitch it to different people, and yeah, no, that's really cool. It's kind of getting it from both ends.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, here's the thing, because like on my keychain, I've had the same keychain for 15 years. It's a seedless keychain. It says "fuck Monsanto," and I realize that just screaming at the walls doesn't change anything. You have to be able to take the type of action if you want to change things. And so, you know, I always encourage people to cultivate on their own land, use natural farming practices, compost, do your chicken manure, goat manures, do your leaf mold compost, do your IMOs, your compost teas, build up your soil health and fertility, and try to be completely self-reliant, because self-reliance and self-sufficiency is the foundation of freedom. And if you can, be self-sufficient, that's how you achieve freedom. It doesn't matter what tariffs are going to in place. It doesn't matter if, the grocery store food prices are going up. If you're self-sufficient, none of that stuff really makes a difference. And I encourage that. But I'm also not disillusioned in the fact that I understand that conventional industrial agriculture and global economics and energy and data and quantum computing, none of that stuff is going away. And if we want to kind of implement better systems that are more sustainable, not just environmentally sustainable, but economically sustainable and viable, then we have to create industrial solutions as well. And that's kind of what Dr. George did. And I totally see his vision. And I want to be able to succeed in that, because when it comes down to it, it makes so much more sense logistically from a resource standpoint, from a natural resource standpoint, from an energy standpoint, from an environmental impact standpoint, from a business standpoint. There's nothing that doesn't make sense. And we're at a point in history where it's starting to make sense to a lot more people, with people like RFK, and you start hearing these terms, regenerative agriculture. You start hearing these key phrases that are coming into the norm, the normal, or that zeitgeist of common knowledge and understanding. So, it's just my goal to be able to implement these systems, and I encourage people to, be independent of it, but I'm still going to move forward, because there's going to be so many people that are reliant on these systems still. And if we can do it better, we should.
It's cool.
For sure.
Yep.
So you definitely sound passionate about this beyond, beyond just making money, and that's what I like to see as well. You know, it's something that you could sort of almost see a sparkle in your eye when you talk about it. If you could teach, like if we were to bring you in for our education day, how would you envision like a little seminar being held? What do you think you would want to? Because it would be completely up to the educator. I don't know why I said it like that, but completely
You
up to
know,
you.
the thing is, I've done so much education on cannabis, and I don't mind it. I love doing it. I often repeat myself over and over again, but one of the things that I'm starting to realize that I maybe not have given myself enough credit for in the past is my business acumen. You know, because I own multiple businesses. You know, I have the dispensary and grow. I have you know, with the hemp license. I have another hemp license with the tissue culture lab. I have the Bokashi Earthworks. I have an agricultural consulting company. I have a seed bank. You know, so I have all these different, you know, things, and they're all incorporated on paper. I do the accounting and pay taxes, and I manage all of these things. And so one of the things that I see all the time, I see failure all the time in the cannabis space. You know, whether it's legacy operators getting into the legal market, or whether it's people that don't have a lot of experience and throw huge sums of money at it. I've seen it go.
Daniel Farmington here. Would you like to add a little extra happy to your daily routine? Try One-A-Days by the Rehab Premium Company. One-A-Days to keep the doctor away.
Both ways, and I've seen success both ways, and I've seen failure both ways. But I think the biggest takeaway from, you know, understanding how an agriculture business works is it's really comes down to not just the cultivation. Yeah, you need consistent product. You don't have to be the best. Here's the thing, McDonald's doesn't produce great quality food, but you know you're going to get a Big Mac in Kentucky, it's going to be the same in California. You know, it's consistent, right? And if you can do something consistent and you can do decent marketing, but that's not it. You know, there's all this other stuff in the business that you have to really understand, and it really comes to logistical analysis of the business as a whole. So we have to look at every single aspect in different cost. We have to look at all the inputs versus all of the outputs, and we have to do comparative cost analysis, you know, spreadsheet that shit and see what is costing you where. Figure out where you're wasting, you know, because when it comes to the legal business with all the taxes, the licenses, the fees, and especially if you're vertically integrated, when you're talking about packaging and, you know, all the labor that comes with trimming and testing and everything else, right? You're operating on margins that are pretty slim. I mean, you might be operating on a net margin of maybe, you know, 7 to 12% at, you know, at best. And that's, you know, lower than most restaurants operate. Now you can get those numbers up, but it depends on your cultivation practices, your methodologies, and your ability to really put together a comprehensive business model that's vertically integrated into your marketing, your sales, your production. You know, you have to know those things inside out, and you have to have confidence in a plan.
Yeah, it's refreshing. You don't really, I mean, I'll say that I've started to hear it more, but it's still relatively new. People talking about how to succeed in this community as a business, you know, as an entrepreneur or starting up. And
Yeah. Well,
people can learn
here's a
it. If
really good
not, they're
example.
like you said, they're just going to throw a lot of money at something and wonder, well, what the hell happened? I had all the money in the world, and
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you a good example of something that I see in our space. And I'm not, you know, throwing out names or saying any one company or anything, but I'm going to use seed companies as an example. So we've seen a large increase in seed companies over the last decade, massive. And when somebody starts a seed company, their objective is to make and sell seeds. Now, as a breeder myself, I understand how much time that takes. Like I just did a pheno hunt. It took me a whole year. I did multiple rounds, selected a few different plants out of 80 or 90 different plants that I grew over the course of the year just so I could do line work on those plants and then grow those. And so one of the things I see that's constant is there are companies that rely on constant seed drops, right? So they're dropping seeds, they're dropping seeds. There's no way that those companies can do all of the real work for um, or there's no vision for the line other than we're making seeds. There's not like, oh, we want to take this a certain way. We want to isolate these characteristics, this terpene profile. We want to get this to F3, F4. We would stabilize these characteristics. They're just like, oh, what's the new hot shit? We're going to put that out, put a bunch of it out. It takes time to test. And I love the process. I enjoy the process of testing and selecting, looking at different males, looking at, just the whole everything of it, right? I enjoy that, but I know that it's time consuming. And I think that people are starting to see that too. Like, oh, these people are putting out like, a 20 different variety menu every 3 months. How in the fucking world are they able to, go through all that stuff? And it's because, and the thing is, it's like, same thing where a company goes too big, right? Where they go too big and they're spending tons of money instead of like developing their business model, starting small, developing their clientele. I mean, when I started slinging weed, dude, I didn't start off with 10 bows. I started off with a fucking ounce, and I worked my way up. You know what I mean? And it's like all these things that I have experience in that comes from my experience in both in the traditional market. It's like I never overproduced in the traditional market. I knew what I needed to produce to keep everything going and make a little bit of money and take care of my customers. And it's that same concept. Like I don't want to be producing 40 pounds off the rip, have no customers, and then be like, oh, yeah, I got weed, I got weed, I got weed. And, like, you know what I mean? And it's like a struggle. And I'm like trying to grow weed and run a business and like, network with 40, 50 different people trying to, it just start small and grow. If you have something that works, then scale it up. And that's already what I did because I was already selling seeds, already selling genetics. I always sell out of my clones and my cuts. And it's like, okay, well, hey, I don't have enough room at my home grow because it's just small, and I'm just basically selling all my extra stuff that I'm not using. But now I can do this. I can grow moms. I can scale it out, So it's just like start small and I'm just, because I seen so many people fall out of the market because they went too big, man.
No, that's good.
Keep it small, keep it simple.
I think that'd be awesome. We've already been talking, but we'll have to continue talking. That seems like it'd be a great thing to have people hear, have people learn about. You were also a judge last year for Flower, correct? So,
Oh yeah.
So how was
Yep.
that? Did you see anything that really like blew your mind? Be like, oh wow, that's interesting.
There was a couple in there that had some like soury Kush notes. I forget what the entries were. I don't actually think we were even told what they were. We were just given numbers because
Yeah.
it's all blind, like blind. Nobody knows what's what anyway. But I'll tell you this much. I have judged a lot of cannabis competitions, and when whenever I go and see new states and what they bring to the table, I'm usually not disappointed. Like there are a lot of really excellent cultivators all over the place, no matter where I go. Same thing in Spain. Don't get me wrong, there are things that are like, and like sometimes in the beginning when a state first opens up, like when New York first opened up and I judged the Organic Cup, there was a lot of stuff in there that I was like, I have a standard that I set for myself, and if it doesn't meet that standard, I'm not even going to try it. So some of like half of that stuff was like, yeah, this weed looks like it's last year's outdoor. I'm good
Right.
on this. Stuff like that. But overall, man, there was a lot of really good entries. It was a cool time, man. I liked it. If I have the time, I will definitely come back out.
Yeah, no, we'd love to have you.
Nice. Yeah, it'd be great to have you.
We're moving it up earlier in the month this year. Try to beat that heat. June 7th with the judging taking place the week before on that Friday and Saturday, I think. But no, yeah, that'd be.
If you come out,
What's that?
if you come out, we'll have to bring our bong to breakfast.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I keep hearing.
yeah.
That was
Gotta have a
hilarious.
bong, man. I'm a bong man.
I know. I seen that last year. It was just every entry was bonging up.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like that's how I smoke. So
Yeah. I'm a pipe
That's how
guy. I
I'm-
got a million pipes. You know what I mean? It's just how it's always been.
yep. So that's how I'm gonna judge too. I'm gonna use a bong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes
That was
sense.
just funny because when we went to breakfast, the waitress lit up right there, and I was like, man,
Oh
you get
yeah, that's
smoke-
right. Yeah,
smoke right in there.
because it's all on the res right there. So
Yeah,
you can be
ripping bongs
smoking.
at breakfast.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I actually had a lot of fun. I really like going out to New York. It's beautiful upstate, and the city is controlled chaos. I would never live there, but driving my 4x4 truck in the middle of downtown Manhattan in the madness was
Pretty fun.
it was an experience, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's one of those things where you have to drown out the noise by just turning the volume all the way up on your
Yeah.
radio, and then
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
But
I never drove in New York City up until this past year, and it was definitely an experience.
and for whatever reason, it seems like New York's taste in weed really aligns with what I like, because I'm all sours, OGs. I love hazes, and then I got to have that, that blueberry, a little blueberry in the mix, So
Yeah.
it's like
We'll have you.
I do a lot,
We'll take you.
yeah. So I see a lot of people out in Jersey and New York and stuff running a lot of my gear, running like the Limarilla stuff, and I'm testing right now ChemD times Black Lime Reserve. I fucking can't wait. I can't wait to see how it turns out.
That sounds good. I love the old MD.
It's so good.
Yeah,
I
me
actually
too.
have a jar of it sitting right here. Just finished it up a couple days ago.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. So yeah, no, I won't keep you any longer. Really interested to see where those pots go. The whole aspect of being able. I sort of in my head, I feel like you can like allow soils and areas of place to like rebirth, like you were saying, deserts, Abu Dhabi, all out there.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Are you only selling online? I know you said you were trying to find like a mass production facility, but like is there like local areas where you have some available in shops or anything like that yet?
No. Nope. Once we sold out, I decided that I was not going to try to, I wasn't going to keep manually making these things because it's too labor intensive, and it's just the work that goes into it versus the return on it. It's not worth the value. However, once we scale out, we'll be able to produce 480,000 units of the six, six packs. And, that I think will be in itself maybe even just as large as a business as the humate fertilizer, simply because it's a dry product. The shipping on it will be a little more cost effective, and the international use. I mean, here's the thing. I have to really think and visualize on like these huge scales, these massive scales, or like, hundreds of millions of dollars, because that's where it can potentially go. So it's really just a matter of me setting my mind in that framework. You know what I mean? Like visualizing it and being like, because here's the thing, like before I was like, I need, it would be so great to get $1 million check, like $1 million. And it's like, that's such small thinking in the grand scheme of things. Our government's constantly talking about spending $100 billion like it's nothing. In the grand scheme of things, $5 or $10 million isn't really a lot. $100 million. Once you start getting up into those larger numbers, you do have to make some adjustments because you're in a new realm of business.
Yeah, no, that's
So it takes
Yeah.
that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's 6-packs.
Nowhere
too.
near
That's
that.
great.
Just FYI, so everybody knows it. To get to that point, I am sacrificing a lot and staying broke.
100%.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Bless you. That,
You know,
that
all
shows you the dedication, man.
Yep. I respect
But
that.
it's because I believe in myself. I have confidence in myself, and so I'm investing into my own future as opposed to like trying to do something that's going to build somebody else up.
Yeah, like a
Because
coattailer.
I'm not just building myself up, but the people around me, the businesses that I work with. So it's like a complete network. And the cool thing is that when when I have all of these businesses done and set up, they will like, I have to spend money to make money. But once those are set up and generating, I have different revenue sources. And that's one of the cool things about like the Dispo and Grow, right? My income isn't reliant on that. Like I put that up because hey, it was the right time, right place. It was inexpensive, low overhead, and we could go vertical. So I was like, this makes sense because we're not going to spend a lot of money. We can make a lot of money out of here.
Yeah.
But it's not my only stream of revenue either. So it's
Basically,
not like
one thing can fuel the other until they're all established, and then once they're all established, then they'll all fuel everything. I mean, for sure, I get that.
exactly.
Yep. Yep.
Exactly. So
100%.
the idea is to get to a point where, we've maxed out our space in our tissue culture lab and everybody's got, they're holding their genetics there, or they're, getting things, embryo rescued or whatever it is, that's all filled up. We're doing the same thing. We're continuing to grow with Bokashi Earthworks. We get the manufacturing and everything set up in North Dakota. We've got the Dispo and Grow, and we're selling cuts and selling flower, and then I'm doing all my personal work, on my
Yeah.
project, breeding project. So
Right.
it just, I try to just tie everything together and make it work. And I like to help. The cool thing too is I always help people. I'm always willing to answer DMs and be like, hey, someone's like, hey, do you think you could help me with this problem? And I'll be like, yeah, man, all you need to do is turn your light down a little bit and turn your humidity up. Like there's a lot of times a major issue that somebody is facing, I can look at and be like, oh, this is so simple, dude, just do this. And so I've been able to give a lot back, and people are appreciative of that, I feel, and so it makes me feel good
Cool.
about it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, so it's
I
all
respect
Right,
that.
should be.
community.
Knowledge should always be passed.
Yeah, but I
If
kind of
you
have
can
like
help, I think of it as if you could help one person a day too. You know what I mean? It's just doing the right thing too. That's awesome. I like that.
hopefully I'm collecting up a lot of good karma.
Karma points. Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
You never
for
know when
sure,
you
for
might
sure,
need it.
100%.
Funky
Yep.
situation or something down the road or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
yeah.
So, well, yeah, no. Again, appreciate having you on here. It was really good. I wasn't involved with the competition much last year, so being able to pick your brain and hear your story and hear what you've got going on. I have followed you since the event, so that's how I at least stayed up to par with understanding and following what you're doing. So that's great. I do appreciate it. I want to thank Ian for hopping on tonight and Dave for hopping on as well.
Gotcha, brother.
They're both
Thanks, man.
coordinators from THGC. And June 7th, it's going to be from 12 to 8. The day before, we're doing an education day. All of our sign-ups, volunteer entries, competition entries, vendor entries, thehomegrowerschampionship.com can accept all of it. And cash is king. We're always down to collect paper as well. So, yeah, again, Episode 14 of the Home Growers Championship podcast. We out.